Hello everyone and welcome. We are back with the first gear time for 2020 and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. It's been a while since we've shot one of these.
Yeah, here we are back in the camera room here in Fairlawn, Ohio, and super excited about all of the end of the year purchases we made.
It's a tradition.
I want to send this video directly to the IRS. They can look at the receipt, but this is proof. We got new stuff. We got all new stuff, and I'm excited about it. The C200 is a phenomenal camera.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right, so give me all of your thoughts on it now that we own it. And you already had one in your personal collection.
I do.
For all of your endeavors.
Yeah.
And so what do you think of it?
Yeah, it's a fantastic camera. I think it fixes most of the issues that I've had with Canon cameras, and I love Canon cinema cameras, but there's a few weird layout quirks. One of the big things is we got XLR right on the body here,
Sure.
instead of having to do it on a handle or the monitor unit, which is kind of weird. And it has autofocus, which you can control with the touchscreen now. So
Wow.
with the C300, you had to use the joystick to move it around, which works, but maybe a little cumbersome. And on the C100, you couldn't move it at all. But on this one, we can track faces, touch things on the screen, follow focus around. It's pretty nice.
What is the issue you were explaining that your Tamron lenses don't work
They don't.
for some reason and you can't figure out why that there's an issue? And we have some here in our collection that work with Canons here.
Yeah, so I have the newer model of the Tamron lens, and there's no difference optically. It's just they put it in a new case and charge more for it.
Sure.
But it doesn't work with this camera, and it's kind of frustrating. I have a handful of Tamron lenses, and they're all like their newer style, and none of them work with the C200. And I don't know why that is, but at this point, the camera's been out for 2.5 years. I don't think it's going to get fixed.
How does it compare to the C300 Mark II that I don't mind pointing out was double the price?
Yeah.
But back in the day, when we bought it in 2012 or 13 or 14, whenever it was, I don't remember whenever the Canon C300 Mark II came out, but now this seems like a better camera than that camera. And how do you compare them? How does this fit into that lineup?
Yeah, so it's below it technically in terms of what Canon thinks it sits, but it's almost kind of like a side camera. Like they're on the same level.
Sure.
They do different things a little bit. So the C200 can record a 150 megabit per second 4K signal.
Yes.
8-bit 420.
Okay.
And it can also record RAW. So you have kind of the low-end 4K, and then you have a super high-end 4K.
Right.
Where the C300 exclusively records a 400 megabit per second 422 10-bit signal. So it kind of records that middle level.
Sure.
So the C300 is great for like broadcast and documentary type stuff. And then the C200 with that 150 megabit per stuff is great for like corporate video. And then with the RAW, it's going to be great for like high-end commercial production where you're not going to be generating a ton of footage, or like indie film type stuff where you want that high quality.
Explain to me sensor size and the difference, if there is. Are they the same sensor? I'll play the part of the person as if I don't know. Explain it.
It's definitely the same sensor size. I think it's the same exact sensor, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay. All right. Now, when you talk about Canon RAW, and all of the manufacturers have their own version of RAW,
Yeah.
and how does a Canon RAW compare to a Red RAW or any of the Blackmagic RAW? How do they all compare? I mean, how would you make a decision on, would you make a decision based on what platform or what ecosystem to be
Yeah.
in, based on
I
if you
think-
like the RAW file approach?
So the Red RAW is certainly a lot more built out than the other RAWs because it's been around for going on 15 years now. So Canon RAW and Blackmagic RAW are a little bit newer. And I think the only reason that you would necessarily choose one over the other is compatibility with your editing system. So Blackmagic RAW does not work directly in Premiere, and Canon RAW, I'm pretty sure, does not work in DaVinci.
Okay.
I think both of them work in Final Cut, but I'm not up on Final Cut right now. Where Red RAW has pretty much universal adoption because it's been around for so long. So if you are an exclusive DaVinci user, you might want to lean towards Blackmagic, and if you only edit in Premiere, Canon's probably a better option.
And the menu options or the ergonomics of this are similar to your C100 Mark IIs and your other. I mean, it fits in, and also the colors and they match the other Canons. If you have a collection of them, shooting all this like we have here.
Yeah, there's a little bit of variation between 100s and 200s and 300s, but it's far less than what you'd find going from Sony to Canon or Canon to Blackmagic or something like that. In terms of ergonomics, I think this is the best cinema camera that Canon's made. It's also the C500 Mark II is just being released right now, but in terms of cameras that have been out and actually in people's hands, this is their newest camera, and I think that shows in terms of they've put what they've learned from building the C100 and C300 line out for like the last 8 years. They've put all that knowledge into this and built the best body that they've built.
Frame rate, 60 frames per second.
Yes.
You can't do that on a C300 Mark II.
You can, but you have to drop down to 1080.
Right.
So on this, you can do 60 frames per second at 4K, and you can do that in RAW or in the MP4, which is nice.
So I have a question here about the handle. It's obviously we don't have the handle on it right now, and you need 2 screws and an Allen wrench to put the handle on, and this is upsetting.
Yeah, so well, it doesn't really fit in cases as compact as it could with this on it, and there's really no way to protect this screen on here, so I think it's best to travel with this disassembled just a little bit. But the handle, you have 1 thumb screw, but the second screw requires an Allen wrench to put on, which is mildly annoying. So I'd recommend replacing this handle and most of this setup with just a cheese plate up here on top, and then you can buy like a NATO handle or something that just drops in and you tighten it down. And it's just a little quicker to set up.
And on our C300, we've probably had it 4 years now.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. But you put the Zacuto rig on it, and I don't remember why that is. I feel like it was for the graticle or the eyepiece,
So the
viewfinder.
There's a top plate from Zacuto on there, and it does support the graticle, but it also allows you to put that handle on and off. And again, you can take it on and off with a thumb screw. Where on the C300, to take that handle off, you actually needed to do both screws with the Allen wrench. Here, we've got it down to 1 screw, but you still need the Allen wrench.
So the idea with the handle is that it takes up a lot of space in the case, but some videographers, they want to just go from scene to scene or shot to shot. Or the trend now is to run and gun, go, go, go. And so you want to have you can have a handle that removes quickly, and you wouldn't want to have a case that just the handle just stays on it, or is that it could damage the screen in transit? And
No, well, it depends what kind of case you have. But we primarily, at Mosher Media, use Pelican cases.
Right.
And we keep this in the same case as the C300. We're frequently doing 2 shoots at the same time. And so if you're running 1 camera and you want like a shoulder bag with it fully assembled, that works fantastic. But if we're bringing as much equipment as we do to a shoot, we kind of need that to pack down as small as possible. So we're not just having extra cases that, more space in the van, that's less lights we can bring.
Right, well, there you go. What I want to do is end today's segment with a little comparison. I have from back in my day when I shot local cable TV commercials and we did corporate video on the XL1, the Canon XL1. And the reason that it strikes me as fun is this camera and this camera are the same price.
Wow.
That back in 2000 or 2001, there was an XL2 also, and I think I owned both of them, or bought one and then bought another. But I remember the XL1 or XL1S was $6,000 or $7,000, and if I'm not mistaken, this one was $6,000 or $7,000. And think about that for a second. That what you get, I guess that's 20 years ago.
Yeah. It's come a long way.
It has come a long way, but I mean, you had interchangeable lenses. You could record the DV tape, and the XL2 was the one where you could switch to 16:9. Oh yeah.
And as much as I've been talking up the ergonomics of this camera, that you can just throw up on your shoulder and you have a view piece right there. That's quite nice.
It was. We never took the handle off this. But you just run and gun.
Yeah. You probably didn't travel with as many lights though.
No, we had some. Well, we had the big tungsten, I had Lowell soft lights and the soft box and all that.
Yeah.
And people would come in and they'd be blinded because you would just put up all this light. But at any rate, it's a fun comparison from back in the day to think about. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts on the C200 or advice you'd give to people that are considering the C200? The aspiring filmmakers. There are some college students that would make the investment like this. There's certainly for corporate video. What was Canon thinking as their audience, their market for this camera?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a dual market. So, if you want 4K and you don't want to deal with 400 megabits per second, this is a perfect camera if you're okay with 420 8-bit. and that works for a lot of the type of projects we do. And then again, this works really well for the high-end stuff. If you're trying to do a lot of broadcast stuff where you need that 400 megabit 10-bit signal, the C300 is still a better camera for that.
Wow. Well, thank you for enlightening us, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.